First of all, I'm a family man of two daughters and wife. And secondly, I'm IT professional. Currently, I work for Commonwealth Bank of Australia. I'm quite involved in the community. I am currently the Oceania Regional Coordinator for NRNA, which is a global Nepalese organization, which is spread over 80 countries. So I finished my engineering in 1997. I'm doing for myself, family, and the community. So it all goes hand in hand. When Australia had a bushfire, our organization raised about $15,000 and handed over. Built about 600 houses for the people who lost houses in Nepal, and we handed over to those victims recently as well. My role in NRNA in Australia is not only looking after Australia, I'm looking after Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and other countries. As a community, I want to continue working in the community and help Nepalese people plus the local community as well.
Good day everyone, my name is Navneet Anand from aajKal, local and global. Today, what a wonderful evening here in Sydney, and with me we have Mr. Hom Pandey, originally from Nepal but now have been in Australia for a number of years. Mr. Pandey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
कस्तो छ?
एकदम राम्रो छ. मजेमा छ.
This is all I know in Nepalese, so I thought why not? I try my Nepalese as well.
That's all right. I think you did very well. Very well.
Yeah. Before I proceed, it would be better if you can tell about yourself to our audiences.
First of all, I'm a family man of two daughters and wife. And secondly, I'm an IT professional. Currently, I work for Commonwealth Bank of Australia.
Oh, you work for the Commonwealth Bank of Australia?
That's correct, as a senior project manager, managing the IT projects for the bank. I'm quite involved in the community. I am currently the Oceania Regional Coordinator for NRNA, which is a global Nepalese organization, which is spread over 80 countries. About 8 million people are represented by these organizations, and we have about 100,000 plus registered members of this organization. And I look after the Oceania region, which is Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the countries around this region.
And about your education, where did you complete your education from?
I did my high school from Nepal, year 12, and then I came to Australia in 1993 to do my Bachelor of Engineering in Computer Engineering. So I finished my engineering in 1997. Then I went back to Nepal, worked there for a couple of years. Then I came back to Australia again in 1999. Since then, I'm working and living in Australia on permanent basis.
So what made you to come back to Australia after you gone back home?
Actually, I came to Australia to study on a scholarship program.
Right.
I was a AAA scholar.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finished my education, I went back to Nepal, started working for the companies in Nepal in IT. However, after a couple of years, I missed Australia more than anything else for various reasons. I guess the key reason was I was working and living in Kathmandu at that time, but my parents were not in Kathmandu, they were living in other city.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my friends who went to university, schools and so forth in Nepal, they already have gone overseas. So that was the era in Nepal where we just had new political systems, democracy came, and a lot of people started to sort of get that overseas educations and things, they started moving out. So my friends, many parents actually went overseas. So actually I felt like, even though I was in Nepal, I felt that
I'm left alone.
I'm left alone. So I decided, well, why not come back to Australia? And I thought about it, if I have to go back to Nepal, I can do in a day anyway, right? So, and I was not living with my parents anyway, and not many parents were surrounded where I live in Kathmandu at that time. So I thought, it's just a different place, why not, so yeah.
If I talk about the early years of settling in Australia after you came back in 1997, you said. So how were those days? Was it too difficult to settle in, or you got adjusted immediately within the system?
Well, I came to Australia in 1993 as a student, so I didn't find much difficult to adjust. I went to University of Newcastle,
right,
which was sort of a small town and a small city. And the people were very friendly. Everything used to be close by. So, and I used to live in International House, which is hostel made for the international students.
Right.
So even though I was living in Australia, I was in that place where we had people from many countries, and I had like friends from like 15, 20 different countries living together in the hostel. So it was a very multicultural, multilingual, friendly bunch of people, and I really enjoyed living in Newcastle in my schooling of my university life. But later on, when I moved to Sydney and I came back from Nepal second time, I was working here. In the beginning, I didn't like that much because it's a very busy place, and compared to Newcastle and Sydney, there's a big difference, right? I never heard anybody beeping a horn when I was driving in Newcastle, but in Sydney, if you go too slow, people will bomb the, car. If you go too
And imagine what happens in New Delhi, Mumbai, and other places.
like, I used to get in the train, people used to push it. So it just sort of took a while for me to adjust in Sydney, but after a while, I'm used to it. Now if I go to Newcastle, I kind of miss Sydney. So it seems like life is, that change always is a challenge. But then when you
Once you get into the system, then you get carried away with the system slowly. You were just talking about you had friends from 15 different nationalities while you were living in the hostel. This is when somebody talked to me about Australian education system, I tell them, it is not only the formal classroom studies that an international student get here in Australia, it is the informal experience that we get of the class is something which makes them a real professional in life.
That's very true. In fact, like I learned more from the hostel I was living than the classroom in the university, I should say. Obviously, I learned my engineering in terms of computer programming and language and networking and things from my classroom in the university. But in terms of people's interaction, in terms of that soft skills, in terms of respecting and understanding different cultures, I learned more from the hostel I was living in with multicultural community.
So you learned the academic side of it in the classroom at the university, and you learned about life at the hostel itself.
Definitely. I should say that even now in my professional career, I'm actually using those skills more, the skills I learned from the hostel, than the skills I learned from actually classroom.
You've done very, very well for yourself in Australia. And I think this is a similar thread with many of the Nepalese people as well. Why do you think is that?
I guess first of all, it's about, the passion and the goal and the hard work you do. So as I said, when I left Nepal, I was quite a young student, and many people who came to from Nepal to Australia are of the similar type. They mostly finish their high school, or some people finish their, graduate and they come to Australia. They come here for a better life, for achieving something, doing something for themselves, their family, and the community. That's always been my motto, like myself, family, and the community.
Myself, family, and the community.
And the community too. Basically they're all part of my life. So I'm not doing only thing for myself, but again, I'm not only doing things for the community only as well, right? I'm doing for myself, family, and the community. So it all goes hand in hand. And for this, many Nepalese, like they actually believe on that. We have a lot of community organizations. We get involved in various charity programs. We interact. We try to send some skills that we learn from here back to Nepal. Mm-hmm. And we help Nepalese community living here. Plus nowadays we also help other communities. For example, when Australia had a bushfire, our organization raised about $15,000 and handed over. When there was a flood victim recently, our organization NRNA has raised some fund and handed over. So basically,
so bushfires, flood victims, or any of the disaster that happens.
That's correct. And also same thing back in Nepal, right? When there was a earthquake in Nepal a few years back, there many people lost houses and so forth. So our organization NRNA built about 600 houses for the people who lost houses in Nepal, and we handed over to those victims recently as well. So we basically do a lot of philanthropic works. Plus we do knowledge exchange, knowledge handover. Plus we also do some investment in Nepal, because we like to help Nepal in different ways, even though we're living here or any other countries within the world. As I said, There are about over 80 countries. Most Nepalese live nowadays outside Nepal.
Okay.
About 8 million of those. And we do help our motherland in different aspects,
Talking about NRNA, I've read it on the Facebook couple of times.
Yeah.
What's the full form of NRNA?
Non-residents Nepalese Association.
Non-resident Nepalese Association.
That's correct. So Nepalese who do not live in Nepal, non-resident Nepalese. We don't classify people who come for temporary purpose. For example, if someone visiting Nepal, they are not classified as NRNA. People who just came to study, they are still not classified as NRNA. People who are coming overseas to work or live,
right.
Those are the people. Yeah.
If I'm an international student from Nepal, I'm not still considered as NRNA.
That's
but
right, yeah.
once I get my residency of a different country or go and work for a different country, then I would be part of NRNA.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
The structure within Australia and your role overall with NRNA.
Within Australia, we have what we call a national body, NCC, National Coordination Committee. Then in each state and territory, we have a state level committee. So NRNA functions like a Australian government's federal structure, basically national and the state. My role in NRNA in Australia is, as I said before, I'm actually not only looking after Australia, I'm looking after Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and other countries. I'm part of that global committee, but I'm global committee member looking after the regions within the
Oceania region that
region.
you're looking at the moment.
So therefore, I look after Australian committee, New Zealand committee, PNG committee, and I work with the international organizations to bridge that gap between international and the national committee.
You've been serving with NRNA for quite a while. So what are the challenges that you feel for the Nepalese community that face in Australia?
Right now, the challenge within Australia is for the new people who are settling here. There's a lot of challenge in terms of understanding the Australian law, the rules, and so forth. Some people who already came here, the students and settling, they settle a bit easier. But now there's a lot of people who get direct permanent visa, and then they come here. And sometimes they don't understand the culture and the language.
So probably the systems are very, very different than the Nepal.
That's right.
There when they come here. So what is being done to overcome those problems?
For this, we do various training sessions, various conference seminars. So, for example, we run lots of mental health related issues, related seminars and training. We recently did water safety. Because we found that many people who come from Nepal, landlocked country.
Yes, because there are no beaches.
That's right.
For people to go there when they come here, sometimes they get carried away.
And unfortunately, we had few deaths of Nepalese students and people in the water. So we run that water safety programs. Tell them the risk of going to the sea, and they get to learn about swimming and how to contact people with the issues. Those little things, but it impacts people's life. These are the key challenges that we're trying to face. Besides that, there's some other issues during the COVID time, as you know. There were many, recently, people who came to Australia, they didn't have family, and they had to be in lockdown. So at that time, we distributed food and other support to those people within Australia. We cover a few thousand of those people who needed that help.
Having been in Australia for over 27 years, what I have felt, that I've got many of Nepalese friends within my circle as well, that this is a very close-knit community group that goes out of the way as well to help their fellow Nepalese Australian here in Australia as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think Nepalese community is really close bonded. They help each other like their own brother and sister.
Dajubhai Didi.
Dajubhai Didi, that's correct. So we help the parents who come here as well. We organize parents picnic almost every 2 years. So all the parents who visit in Australia, we get them to take to different places, have a picnic, get to know each other. There are many sports programs that we also manage and run, like soccer and volleyball and badmintons and those sort of things.
Are we going to see the Nepalese cricket team soon?
Yeah, there's actually Nepalese cricket team as well, who in different, part of Australia, who play locally here. And last time, when you talk about cricket, there was a cricket game in Canberra. So we got some Nepalese cricket players who came and played that game, and NRNA youth organization was actually sponsoring and supporting that activity as well. So yeah, we do sports cultural parts every 2 years. We have a big festival in Darling Harbour in Sydney called Nepal Festival.
Nepal Festival,
That's
right.
correct, yeah. We get about 25,000 people turn up there on that day. We have music, food, and all sort of things in the Tumbalin Park in Darling Harbour.
Finally, before I conclude, what's on your wish list?
My wish list is, as a community, I want to continue working in the community and help Nepalese people plus the local community as well. Do my professional job as well, because I love what I'm doing professionally as well. Plus invest, and the money I make can be used for helping community and making the world better.
On behalf of my whole team of Voice aajKal, Arvind Singh, Tarun Yadav, Surbhi Dhawan, and me, Navneet Anand, we wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Navneet, and the whole Voice aajKal team. It's been wonderful coming here and talking to you. Thank you for time. Thank you very much.
जी हाँ, आज हमने की नेपाल से आए होमनाथ पांडे से बातचीत और मैं आपका नवनीत. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
One-stop answer to your Australian education and visa matters. Gemco Sydney. Dream big, achieve big.
VG Times. Be with the times.